Kiss stealing, woo, wheeling dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun.
From the past.
I am a real American.
To the present. And the future.
Chair of wheels, more of lawn. Chair of wheels, more of lawn.
You are listening to Penn State's only WWE talk show, Marking Out with Jason Marcus and Matt Freiler.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a special Sunday afternoon edition of Marking Out here on Com Radio. We are Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast. I'm your host, Jason Marcus, and we have a lot to talk about today. We had a bunch of shows going on this week within the WWE, including SmackDown, 205 Live, and NXT. We also had the finals of the G1 Climax to talk about. Some good stuff from Impact Wrestling, a lot of news from Ring of Honor. So a lot to break down in this episode, and we're going to get right into it, starting with this past week's episode of SmackDown Live. A lot of good stuff happening on SmackDown Live. The big thing that we saw from this episode was we saw the return of the WWE Champion AJ Styles. AJ cutting an in-ring promo on the number one contender Samoa Joe in retaliation to the promo that Joe cut on him last week, where Joe essentially claimed that AJ Styles was not a good father and cared more about being WWE Champion than his family, and that Joe was going to take his title and his manhood from him come SummerSlam. But AJ Styles was back this episode and retaliated here, and it was a very good promo from AJ Styles. Really not much to talk about in terms of content of the promo, just overall a very good, building to their match at SummerSlam that for the WWE Championship, which should be great. So I'm very much looking forward to that. But that's really all we see in terms of a build to the WWE Championship match. It's just this AJ promo. Joe isn't on the show. He got the week off here. So that is all we get from them. The big segment of the show came with a interview between The Miz, who was on location at... on location, that's the one that should be in quotes. He was on location on the set of Miz and Mrs., via satellite, conducting an interview with Byron Saxton, who was in the ring. Of course, Byron is asking him about a show on the USA Network that he's continuing to plug, but he's also talking about his offer for the match against Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam, which we talked about last week. The Miz actually declined. So he's talking to Byron Saxton via satellite. Miz is cutting a good promo on Daniel Bryan about how he's not going to wrestle him. And during the middle of the interview, we see that The Miz is ambushed from behind by one Daniel Bryan. They fight across the set of Miz and Mrs., allegedly the set of Miz and Mrs., and that is that big segment. Daniel Bryan gets the upper hand on The Miz, and the match is actually made official. The Miz finally accepts it. He is pushed to the edge, and at SummerSlam, we will get The Miz versus Daniel Bryan one-on-one, a match that so many wrestling fans have been waiting 2 years for, and we will finally get it at SummerSlam on Sunday the 19th. So very exciting stuff to get as we build towards SummerSlam. A great segment, a different segment, not something that you see a lot, so I very much enjoyed it. We also had another promo between Randy Orton calling out Jeff Hardy. Again, though, this angle is very confusing to me because, as I talked about on the show last time, they have that scheduled match for the United States Championship between Jeff Hardy and R-Truth. Or, no, excuse me, not R-Truth. Shinsuke Nakamura. Shinsuke would face R-Truth later in this, and we'll talk about it. So at SummerSlam, it's Jeff Hardy versus Shinsuke Nakamura. But Randy Orton is still firmly in the middle of this program, even though he's not involved in the match in any way. We have yet to get an update on whether or not this will be a triple threat match. We're not 100% sure how Randy Orton will factor into this match, although we are pretty certain that he will in some way. But nonetheless, all Orton does here is has another heel promo in Jeff Hardy. Same stuff we've been seeing for a couple weeks. Like I said, Shinsuke Nakamura would take on R-Truth in this episode of SmackDown. A very quick match. R-Truth has been on SmackDown a lot as of recently. Lost to Samoa Joe, was in that program with Ty Dillinger. Now he's losing to Shinsuke Nakamura on this episode. So R-Truth getting his money, getting his worth on television a lot. But granted, they're all losses, which is fine. But he's still on television, which is great. Because R-Truth is very entertaining. But he loses clean to Shinsuke Nakamura here as he builds to their match with Jeff Hardy for the United States Championship at SummerSlam. We also had a tag team match between the Iconics, Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, versus the team of Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch. Of course, Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch will be 2 of the 3 competitors in the triple threat match for the SmackDown Women's Championship come SummerSlam. Of course, against the third member being the champion, Carmella. Charlotte and Becky pick up the win here in this tag team match. Charlotte makes Peyton Royce tap to the figure 8. Carmella tries to get involved, but she cowardly runs away like the heel that she is. And they continue to play up this angle that Charlotte and Becky are really good friends, best friends, which they are in real life. But they continue to build up the angle that will they be able to coexist when they are adversaries come SummerSlam, when they have the common enemy in Carmella. So that was all from that segment there. We also had a rematch from last week's episode of SmackDown Live between Lana and Zelina Vega. Of course, you remember Zelina Vega beat Lana last week with the roll-up after Aiden English got involved. And they're very much a similar finish here, except it looks like Lana is about to pick up the win here. She's up the top rope. Aiden English comes down, accidentally knocks Lana off the top rope inadvertently. That allows Zelina Vega to hit running knees to Lana in the corner to pick up the 1-2-3. So not a roll-up victory here, but a straightforward pinfall victory as they continue to plant that seed of the separation between Rusev, Lana, and Aiden English. But it is later announced that this match there will be a mixed tag team match on the SummerSlam kickoff show. So on one side we will have the team of Rusev and Lana, and on the other side we will have the team of Andrade Cien Almas and Zelina Vega. So that match is officially announced for the kickoff show for SummerSlam. Disappointing to see that be relegated to the kickoff show because I think everyone involved, unfortunately with the exception of maybe Lana, is deserving of the main roster match. But it is a stacked card, so there's only so much you can do. At least they are on the card in some sense. But that match is made official for the kickoff show. And yeah, I'm excited. I think Andrade Cien Almas is coming in really to his own here on SmackDown Live. Rusev, unfortunately, is not in the best position. But either way, that's the segment, and that is the match made official for SummerSlam. We also had another tag team match between the Bludgeon Brothers, the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, against some jobbers. They call themselves 3SK. Not sure what that stands for, but nonetheless, they are squashed pretty easily by the Bludgeon Brothers. And that's important to note because the number one contender for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship would be decided in our main event between the New Day and The Bar, the team of Sheamus and Cesaro. And they have a fantastic main event here on SmackDown Live. It is a great tag team match, arguably one of the best matches of the week in the entire industry of professional wrestling. It was that good, but in the end, the New Day is able to pick up the win. They will go to SummerSlam and face the Bludgeon Brothers for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. So, very excited to see the New Day back in the title picture. Although we did see this matchup before against them and the Bludgeon Brothers, I personally would have preferred to see the Bar, but I do understand why you put the New Day in there because they are the baby faces against the heels. They're a popular duo. You need to have them on the biggest show of the year. So I'm not too upset with it. Would I have liked to see the Bar? Yeah. But I'm very much okay with the New Day back in the SmackDown team title picture. And they deserved it after that great win on SmackDown. So that was pretty much all from SmackDown Live this week. Really not too much going on. Again, just kind of continuing to build towards SummerSlam. They do have one more show before the go-home episode. So it should be interesting to see what they do on Tuesday, but that is SmackDown. We're going to take our first break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about 205 Live and NXT as well. So you are listening to Marking Out on Com Radio, Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast, and we will be right back.
Now back to Com Radio's only WWE talk show, Marking Out with Jason Marcus and Matt Freiler.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Marking Out on Com Radio, Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast. I'm your host, Jason Marcus. We just finished wrapping up this episode of SmackDown Live. We are now going to move forward towards 205 Live in NXT, starting with 205 Live. Not a very full episode of 205 here. There's certainly been better. There's certainly been worse, though, as well. A very average, middle-of-the-road episode here. We started off with a tag team match between Buddy Murphy and Tony Nese versus two members of Lucha House Party, Kalisto and Lince Dorado. So Buddy Murphy and Tony Nese here. I think they could be doing more with both of these guys. I think both of them as individual stars. Buddy Murphy certainly more so than Tony Nese. Tony Nese just hasn't found his charisma yet, his personality. Buddy Murphy is the best kept secret, as he says, the total package here. But they have a nice tag team match against Lucha House Party. Lucha House Party get the win. Buddy Murphy and Tony Nese get the win here. So a good opening match to 205 Live, really, but no real story here other than they just don't get along. Up next, we had a one-on-one match between Noam Dar and Sean Maluta. Sean Maluta seems to be the guy that the company has a lot of faith in to go out there and have a good match, but put people over. He's seen a lot in NXT. He had obviously a match this week on 205 Live, which is technically part of the main roster. So Sean Maluta has a good match here, but if he does lose to Noam Dar, Noam Dar wins him with a Nova Roller. That's his name of his finisher. It's like a kick. It's okay. Not a great match by any means, but it does get the job done. Noam Dar wins, and we move forward. We then have a backstage promo with Drew Gulak and his henchmen Brian Kendrick and Jack Gallagher. Gulak cutting a promo on Cedric Alexander. Those two will go against each other for the Cruiserweight Championship at SummerSlam. So this is just a promo kind of building towards that. We had another backstage promo, whereas Gulak was more of like a taped, like they were in like a dark room and Gulak was behind a podium. We now have a promo between Leo Rush talking to 205 Live general manager Drake Maverick. And basically, he's complaining about the fact that Maverick has booked Leo Rush in another match against Akira Tozawa next week on 205 Live, despite Rush beating him handedly many times before. So Leo Rush is playing the heel here, complaining, why do I have to face him again? I already beat him. I don't know. But I like Leo Rush, but I agree with him, actually. I think this whole program with Akira Tozawa has run its course. I think we need to start moving him to bigger and better things. That is Leo Rush. But nonetheless, those two will face off against each other one more time, and hopefully for the last time next week on 205. And that leaves to our main event of 205 Live, in a very good match between Hideo Itami and Mustafa Ali. Mustafa Ali is the heart and soul of 205 Live, as they say. His matches are always incredible. This one was no different. These two put on a very, very good match. If you're going to watch any match from this episode, this is certainly the one to watch. I'd also put it up there as one of the best matches in all of wrestling this week. There's a lot of them, so it'd be hard to put them in too high on that list, but they are certainly on the list. And it's a great, great match. The finish of the match is Mustafa Ali looks to hit his finisher, the 054, which is that inverted 450 splash. He misses it. Hideo Itami leaves Mustafa Ali up into the ring ropes, into the Tree of Woe, hits him with 3 consecutive drop kicks while Ali's in the Tree of Woe, and Hideo Itami is able to pick up the big win here over Mustafa Ali to end 205 Live. So excited to see Itami get a big win here. He certainly is building more momentum as this heel character, and he certainly needs it. Ali has been great as a babyface. I don't think this loss hurts him as much as it helps Hideo Itami. So good booking decision here, and that was 205 Live. Up next, we're going to talk about NXT. A lot to talk about on this week's episode of NXT. So we started off with a one-on-one match between Nikki Cross and a jobber by the name of Amber Nova. Nikki Cross, surprisingly still on NXT. A lot of people thought that she would be called up to the main roster to join her Sanity cohorts on SmackDown Live after she lost to Shayna Baszler at NXT TakeOver. But she's clearly still on the NXT roster. She picks up a big win here over, well, I guess you'd call it a medium win, over Amber Nova here in the opener. And wasn't too flashy. She picks up the win with her, was swinging neckbreaker finisher, and that's it. Good win for Nikki Cross here. Up next, we have a promo highlighting the debut of Keith Lee. Keith Lee will make his in-ring debut for NXT in this episode, and this is just a promo kind of getting people hyped for that. But before we can get to that, we are promised a match for Ricochet involved. Ricochet makes his entrance down the ramp, but before we can find out who his opponent is, he is ambushed from behind by the Undisputed Era. Of course, Ricochet will be going one-on-one with Adam Cole for the NXT North American Championship at TakeOver Brooklyn 4 SummerSlam weekend. And I just continue to build with that, the build for that. The Undisputed Era, unquestionably the heels here. They attack Ricochet from behind and lay him out. And so Ricochet never gets to his match. So that's a bummer. But I am looking forward to their match come NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. Should be one of the better matches on the card. So very much looking forward to that. After that, we had a backstage promo with an interview and interviewing Vanessa Bourne. Vanessa Bourne would be going one-on-one with Tayara Kansi later in the night. Bourne the heel in this one. Bourne being condescending to the interviewer, being like, why are you talking to me? Leave me alone. I'm working out. Yada, yada, yada. But just a backstage promo trying to build to their match later in the night. We have a one-on-one match up next between Cassius Ohno and Adrian Jaoud. Adrian Jaoud, a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, coming out with the gi and everything. But they have a good match between him and Ohno. But thankfully, Ohno does pick up the win here with his finisher, he now called the Dream Crusher Elbow, which basically is a roaring elbow to the back of the head. Ohno picks up the big win here, and I'm very excited. As I've said on the podcast before, I'm a very big Cassius Ohno fan. I've been following since his Hall of Fame independent career as Chris Hero. So very excited to see Ohno finally get the push that I feel like he deserves. And he has a good match with Jaoud here. After this, we had a very odd segment, very odd, between Velveteen Dream and EC3. Of course, those two will be going one-on-one against each other come NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, but they have this odd pre-taped segment where they're supposed to be at the Velveteen Dreams pool house, and it was weird. It's really even hard to describe, but yeah, Velveteen Dream ends up getting the better of EC3, but like I said, it's hard to describe. You have to go back and watch it, but yeah, that's all I'm going to say on that. Just go watch it. It was weird. It was just weird. After this, we finally get the debut of Keith Lee. He goes one-on-one, but with a man by the name of Marcel Barthel, a proud German character. Keith Lee looks really good here, shows off his athleticism. He does a leapfrog into the drop kick while Barthel is running the ropes, which is super impressive for a man of the size of Keith Lee. For those of you who don't know, Keith Lee was one of the biggest stars on the independent wrestling scene as of late, but he's a very big man, well over 300 pounds, and the fact that he's able to do all this stuff just speaks to the athleticism of Lee. But Lee does pick up the win here in his debut match on NXT. His finisher doesn't have a name yet, but it is a fireman's carry into a jackhammer. So you guys can picture that, but that is Keith Lee's finisher. He picks up the win here over Barthel. Clearly the face here. He reminds me a lot of a young Mark Henry. I can see his career going very much in that way. He just seems like a very big, lovable guy. So that is the debut for Keith Lee. Very impressive stuff. Next, we have a promo with the Street Profits cutting a promo on the Mighty. So those two teams look to be continuing a program together. It seemed as if the Street Profits were on set of a talk show or something. I don't know. But nonetheless, not that important. Street Profits cut a promo on the Mighty, and that's all we get from them. Next, we have that one-on-one match between Vanessa Bourne and Tayyara Conti, where the winner will be the final member into the Mae Young Classic. And this is a good match between both women, but in the end, Tayyara Conti comes out victorious over Vanessa Bourne. Conti is the final member in the Mae Young Classic. A good match here between these two women. Nothing too exciting to rave about there. They're two relatively unknown women. Bourne's been on NXT for far longer than Conti, which might speak to the reason as to why she was chosen to not go into the Mae Young Classic, because that, of course, is a tournament to really build a lot of the female talent, and Conti needs it far more. But nonetheless, they do have a good match. They advertise another match for next week between Tyler Bate and Roderick Strong, as well as another one-on-one match for next week between Kairi Sane and Aaliyah. So next week, be sure to check that out. I'm very much excited for the match between Tyler Bate and Roderick Strong as they continued their feud between the Undisputed Era and Mustache Mountain. Those two teams will be going against each other for the NXT tag titles come Takeover Brooklyn. So a one-on-one match here should be exciting to watch, especially given those are two of the best young wrestlers in NXT. Lastly, we have a promo to end the night between, it is a one-on-one match between Aleister Black and Johnny Gargano. Of course, the story here being Gargano is the one who cost Black his NXT championship. These two now go one-on-one. They only wrestle about 5 minutes before Tommaso Ciampa gets involved, beats them both up. And they, all three are fighting, and it is made official that the main event of TakeOver Brooklyn will be a triple threat match between Aleister Black, Tommaso Ciampa, and Johnny Gargano for the NXT Championship, made official by NXT General Manager William Regal. However, that announcement will not hold for very long, because directly after the show ends, we are alerted to news on the WWE Network, on WWE.com, that Aleister Black was found unconscious in the parking lot of NXT. So, who done it? Who knocked out Aleister Black? In real, that's kayfabe, obviously. In real story, Black was injured on a house show, and he will actually need surgery. So, they need to write him out of this storyline here. So, Black will not be able to compete at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. So, he will not be able to regain his NXT championship. Instead, we will now see a one-on-one match for the third time between Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano. However, this time it'll be a last man standing match for the NXT Championship. So should be the final chapter in their incredible story here in NXT. But that is now our new main event for NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, and I, for one, am very much excited about it. So that was NXT this week. We're going to take a second break. When we come back, we're going to talk about everything going on in Ring of Honor and New Japan and Impact and even possibly a little bit of Lucha Underground. So you are listening to Marking Out on Com Radio, Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast, and we will be right back.
Now, back to Com Radio's only WWE talk show, Marking Out with Jason Marcus and Matt Freiler.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Marking Out on Com Radio, Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast. I'm your host, Jason Marcus. We talked about SmackDown, we talked about 205 Live, and we just finished talking about this week's episode of NXT. Now we're going to move into some of the other promotions within the world of professional wrestling, starting with Impact Wrestling. Of course, a couple weeks ago, they came off of one of the most highly decorated shows in company history, being Slammiversary 16. They're still in the fallout from that. So, not too much going on. However, we did see the opening match was a tag team match between Ishimori and Petey Williams versus the Desi Hit Squad. Desi Hit Squad, a relatively newer team. They have yet to lose in Impact Wrestling. They go into this match against two veterans of the ring in Ishimori and Petey Williams. And believe it or not, Petey Williams and Ishimori pick up the win here. Dusty Kid Squad takes their first loss in the company. Questionable booking, I would say, but nonetheless, they do have a very good match. But the Ishimori and Petey Williams pick up the win after Petey Williams hits the Canadian Destroyer. Up next, we had a one-on-one match between Pentagon and Matt Sydal. Pentagon picks up the win here after... Pentagon picks up the win here. Another good match between the two. Again, not really too much as far as in terms of storyline here, but just really good wrestling, I would say. We had a promo between OGs of LAX and against the new LAX. And the OGs, Homicide and Hernandez, cut a promo on the new LAX and basically issue a challenge for a street fight between the two for the next week's episode of Impact Wrestling. So next week on Impact, we will get a street fight between the two. We had Tessa Blanchard defeat Alicia in a one-on-one match, and then afterwards cut a promo on the Knockouts champion, basically coming for her title, Allie. So Tessa Blanchard, the standout of the Knockouts division here on Impact Wrestling, and she continues her hot streak as well. And finally, the main event, we had a match between Austin Aries and Eddie Edwards for the Impact Wrestling Championship. That is interrupted by Killer Cross, who comes to the aid of the Impact Champion Austin Aries, kind of serving as that big heel bodyguard role for the champion, attacks Eddie Edwards with a kendo stick, and that is how Impact Wrestling ends this week, as Killer Cross and Austin Aries look to have formed a partnership for the moment here as well. So that was Impact Wrestling this week. There's a lot of news going on in the rumor mill as far as Impact Wrestling. We'll address those all at the end of the show. But for right now, that we're going to continue to move on to some other promotions. Not too much happened in Lucha Underground. The only notable thing that I would find for casual fans is that Johnny Mundo proposed to his girlfriend. Taya, apparently her name is. Great. I think it's storyline. But it could be real. I don't know. Regardless, that's the only thing that happened at Lucha Underground. And now we got some big news. We are going to continue to move forward to Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling. So, of course, for months now, we have had the G1 Climax kind of been at the forefront of everything in New Japan, and that tournament has begun to wrap up this week. We had the last couple days of the tournament take place, and we actually have a winner of the G1 Climax this year, and we will go into all of that detail right now. Before we do that, we are going to recap the last couple days of the G1 Climax. So we had a lot of really good wrestling over the last couple days here. We had matches between Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi. Of course, Kenny Omega and Zack Sabre Jr. Kota Ibushi and Tetsuya Naito. A lot of really good stuff here. Tanahashi and Okada went to a 30-minute draw. A lot of really good stuff. I encourage you to look up some of those matches on Daily Motion Video. But in the end, we do have our winners from the two respective blocks. Coming out of the A block with, I believe it is a total of 14 points, we have Hiroshi Tanahashi, the winner of the A block. And from the B block with a total of 12 points is Kota Ibushi. So those two will go one-on-one. With the right to face the champion at Wrestle Kingdom on the line, Tanahashi and Ibushi, and Tanahashi picks up the win there. So come Wrestle Kingdom, we will have Hiroshi Tanahashi versus the champion for the IWGP Heavyweight Champion. It marks the third time in Tanahashi's career that he has won the G1, so certainly one of the best wrestlers of all time, especially in Japan. But a great tournament all around, a lot of really good matches that even casual wrestling fans should try and watch if they get the chance. But that was the final of the G1 Climax. It's important to note, though, that in some other Ring of Honor and New Japan news, they have officially sold out their G1 Supercard event at Madison Square Garden on WrestleMania weekend in April. So this upcoming April, WrestleMania NXT Takeover will be taking place at the Barclays Center, as much like it is this weekend. And right across the street in Madison Square Garden, Ring of Honor and New Japan on the same day, same time, will be competing against them, and they have sold out their show at Madison Square Garden, a huge accomplishment for both Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling, two independent wrestling companies, to sell out such a historic and massive venue like Madison Square Garden. So very big news coming from the independent wrestling scene. Impact Wrestling also announced that they will host a Impact Wrestling versus UK event at Wrestling MediaCon on September 9th in the UK. Two of their matches include Jimmy Havoc representing the UK going one-on-one with Impact Sami Callihan, and LAX representing Impact Wrestling going against Jody Fleisch and Johnny Storm of the UK. So some more Impact Wrestling news there as well. We also had Bullet Club will take on Chaos at the upcoming Ring of Honor event, Death Before Dishonor. So the Bullet Club being represented by Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks, and then versus the team of Chaos, which I believe is the team of it'll be Adam Page. Yeah, so the Bullet Club, it'll be Adam Page, Marty Scurll, and the Young Bucks will take on Rocky Romero, Kazuchika Okada, Tomohiro Ishii, and yeah. So that match is set for Wrestling MediaCon that is for Death Before Dishonor. Some other news we had coming out of Ring of Honor, we had that All In, the big September 1st independent wrestling show. We had a couple more matches be confirmed for that, including Kenny Omega will go one-on-one with Pentagon Jr. That entire event will be streamed over Honor Club and Fight TV, as well as the first hour will be streamed over WGN as well. So you can watch the first hour of All In at WGN. Lastly, we had a couple news coming out of the WWE this week. It was announced that early this week that Renee Young will be the first ever female announcer on Monday to call Monday Night Raw. Renee Young will be the guest commentator this upcoming week. She will be replacing Jonathan Coachman, thankfully. So big history being made by Renee Young this upcoming week on Monday Night Raw. She's completely deserving of it. Couldn't think of anyone better to fill that spot. But some exciting news for her in the WWE as well. And then lastly, we have that it was announced that John Cena will go one-on-one with Kevin Owens at the WWE Super Showdown in Melbourne, Australia later this year. So some exciting matches made throughout the world of professional wrestling. And then before I leave you tonight, we have just one more rumor to talk about, and that is the rumor that it is alleged that Chris Jericho, the Hall of Famer, the loyal WWE guy, most recently seen in New Japan Pro Wrestling, defeating Tetsuya Naito at Wrestle Kingdom, at Dominion. It is rumored that Chris Jericho might be going to Impact Wrestling. Of course, Jericho has always been outspoken about how, out of respect for Vince McMahon, he would never work for another company on U.S. soil. Of course, that is Impact Wrestling, so some conflictions there, but the rumors are coming out that statement may not be as strong as it was a couple weeks ago. Of course, Jericho has a lot of friends in management of Impact Wrestling, including Don Callis, who is now the head booker for Impact Wrestling. So some allegations there, some things to look forward to. If Jericho were to go to Impact Wrestling, let me know what your thoughts would be. Use the hashtag Marking Out on Facebook and Twitter. I personally think it obviously would be great for Impact. I mean, I think Jericho just wants to wrestle some of the best in the world. Obviously, some more matches there between Jericho and Austin Aries, Jericho and Moose, Jericho and Matt Sydal. Some great stuff there. But to me, Jericho is just he's a WWE guy through and through. I don't see this happening, but that is possible, and that is the rumor. So that is all I have from this week on Marking Out. Thank you guys so much for listening. I will try and be back here on Tuesday to talk about Monday Night Raw. Obviously, like I said, Renee Young will be on commentary, the first woman to ever call Raw, as we go home and finally close this build towards SummerSlam. So thank you guys so much for listening. We will be back on Tuesday, and take care. All right, bye-bye.